Welcome to The Real Look. I'm Bruce Hardy.
And I'm Chase Williams.
I'm so excited to introduce this episode's Northern Lights guests, Matt Dimmick and Liz Steele with Team Dimmick with Keller Williams Realty Alaska Group. Matt has been a top producer in Alaska since 1997, making the move to Keller Williams in 2006. He helped launch the Alaska Group Market Center, serving as the operating principal for 15 years, all while maintaining his real estate business. Team Dimmick is highly focused on their vision to build wealth through real estate for their clients, their community, and their team members. Now led by Liz Steele, Team Dimmick helps clients all across the state of Alaska in residential, commercial, and investment transactions, with a focus on the Anchorage municipality and the Mat-Su Valley. In 2022, Team Dimmick closed over $34 million in volume on 105 units. Please enjoy this conversation with Matt and Liz. Well, g'day, Matt and Liz. Welcome to The Real Look. Where does today's podcast find you guys?
Yeah, hey, Bruce, I'm up in Anchorage, Alaska. Liz is also.
Okay, awesome. And I heard you just got 3 or 4 feet of snow, so congratulations. That's a little too early for us down here in the lower 48. But hey, Matt, I want to start with you if I could. I mean, we all have a life before real estate. Give us a little bit of your background, and obviously your accent does not sound like it's from downtown Anchorage.
Well, I was born down in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and grew up there in the oil business. My dad worked in the oil business, and I ended up coming up to Alaska in 1976. So I've been here quite a few years and got a job in the oil field. And I actually got into real estate back in 84, I think, to help my oil field people buy investment properties. It was kind of cool. But then I got so busy with my oil field job that, I couldn't do both. The oil field kind of had a change back in the early 90s. And so in 94, I got licensed again. I was licensed 2 years the first time. Started working in a local real estate company, ended up going to Prudential, which they're no longer up here. They still have an office here. It's just not Prudential now. Worked there till 2006 when you and I and Mike Tavener and all the rest of the gang met at Sea Galley and talked about Keller Williams in Alaska.
I just, want to take this opportunity, Matt, to publicly thank you for bringing KW to Alaska. I mean, there were times when it was touch and go and, you were working out of your garage and you were going to lose your house according to the competition. It wasn't that bad, by the way. It was really good. And Matt was the reason that Keller Williams is the number one real estate company in the entire state of Alaska. So thank you for that.
Matt and team, because obviously I didn't do it on my own. I had a great team and most of the players. So I just had to add that in too. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But everything rises and falls on leadership, and you're the OP at the time. So, Matt, you got into real estate in 94. What was your first year like?
That's funny. That's a funny question. I don't know if you knew the story, but so I got licensed in 94. I had an oil field company that I had sold. So I was getting money from it, so I was living pretty good. Got into real estate, but I was just kind of hanging out. I was fishing and playing and this and that. And the owner of Prudential, where actually Liz and I both worked for the same owner at one point, he called me up and said, my wife wants me to fire you. And I was like, fire you for what? And he goes, well, because I gave you a little office. It was a broom closet, no window. I mean, it wasn't an office, okay? He goes, my wife wants me to fire you because you're not doing anything. I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'm selling a house here or there. You know what I mean? It kind of pissed me off, to be honest. And so that was 1997. And of course, I was their top 10 agent every year after that with Prudential, So that kind of lit my fire, if you will.
I love that. So, Liz, when did you get into real estate?
My first real job was when I was in high school. I was 16 and I got a job at Prudential in Eagle River, a smaller branch office from where Matt worked, as an evening and weekend receptionist while in high school. And I graduated at the beginning of that last big housing boom in 2006. Our office, I think, tripled in production that summer. We had to buy more filing cabinets. So I was offered a full-time position while I was going to college, and they worked their hours around my school schedule. So I stayed on full time at that office for 3 years before I decided to switch over to sales. So 5 years in an admin capacity for high school and college.
Okay, so how did you end up with Matt?
Well, I was working again, at this small office in Eagle River, about half an hour outside of Anchorage. And Keller Williams was shaking up our market here locally. And we had 10 to 12 agents leave one weekend. And there were some of my favorite agents that I worked with that I had great relationships with. And the experience at the time was it was pretty discouraging seeing how they were treated when they decided to switch to another competitor. I contacted them and I said, I don't want to work at this office anymore. I'm going to give them a month's notice. I'm going to maybe travel or go back to college or move out of state. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I said, I can't be here. Just the whole vibe of the office with them leaving and how that was handled felt just inappropriate. So anyways, I had let 2 realtors know, Les Bailey and Ed Erickson, that kind of mentored me when I was younger, let them know that I wanted to leave the industry. And if they knew anybody who wanted to transition into sales or get their real estate license, to let me know. And I got, I think, 3 or 4 calls within 24 hours. They gave my information to Matt and the other business partners that helped open up Keller Williams Alaska Group. Dan Wolf called, Beth called, Matt called, a couple other people called, and Matt was on the phone on a plane asking me questions about when can I start. He was asking me all the, recruit, select, career visioning questions. He was trying to power through it on a phone call on the plane. And I could hear them talking on the plane about, you need to power down your devices. And he was like, I just have a couple more questions. And he wouldn't turn his phone off because he was trying to get through all of the questions. At the end of the call, I said, well, I'll fly back next week for an interview and come meet with you. So that's how I ended up with Matt and working at KW.
That was like 13 years ago, right? Or
Yeah.
almost 14 now.
14. Yeah, 14 and a half.
So, Matt, what position were you looking to hire Liz for?
An admin position, but I have to give a shout out to Les Bailey. It gives me chills.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked at my previous office, I was a full-time administrator to the broker and the office managers. So I managed our evening and weekend receptionists. I prepped the files for the broker and did the pre-review. I did essentially what we now call agent services, helped onboarding all of the new agents. I made sure all of our paperwork, because back then we actually had to print the papers, right, and had them in filing cabinets. So all of the draft paperworks were there for all the clients. So I had background from the office side, how to manage all of that. But I started working for a few different realtors at the time, handling the backside of their websites. So I was doing I didn't have a name for it back then, but I was doing CRM management and sending out mass emails to databases and working on pay-per-click ads. I was doing flyers. I was doing prep for social media for a few different agents as agent services. So when I was at my previous real estate office, I had told them I wanted to get my real estate license because I knew there was so much more I could do if I was licensed for those people. It was my intention to remain a full-time admin, but have additional revenue streams by helping out these agents who didn't necessarily want to build a team, but needed some like a la carte services. So Matt hired me to be his transaction coordinator. But I was pretty upfront with Matt in the beginning that I wanted to get my real estate license. I wanted to find ways that I could support his business and build the brand. So one of the big perks joining with Matt is, I think it was a perk, but a good win-win for us. He had all of the sign call leads once I got my license come to me on the evenings and weekends when he wasn't available. So I helped nurture that database and set Matt up for appointments. I stepped in as transaction coordinator and started taking some stuff off of Nancy's plate from the marketing side of things. And I did that for a year before I switched over to sales.
And what do you do now?
I am the team leader for our sales team. So I am the one who does all of the hiring and training for our salespeople and our admin. I'm in the office Monday through Friday, probably 4 to 6 hours a week with my admin team. And then I'm the primary listing partner on our team going on seller appointments.
What was the impetus for making the change from the admin side, which you had a ton of experience in and were doing a great job of, to the sales side?
I was approached actually by Matt and Nancy. And at the time, we had an office manager named Tabitha who worked with us. And they basically said that you need to get out of admin and you need to move to sales. So at the time, honestly, I felt like I was probably being pushed a little too early. It was scary switching from a salary job to a commission job. But Tabitha, who was our office manager at the time, said, you're working evenings and weekends, converting these leads and setting up the appointments and going on the appointments when nobody else is available. She was like, you will make more over here. You just need to switch. So I kind of was pushed a little bit, to be honest. The other big thing, too, that just changed in my life is I had my first daughter at the time, and switching to a position where I could have more flexibility and make my hours work around my schedule. My newborn was super important. So I took the opportunity and figured, it's do or die. I got to figure out how to make it work.
Where did the team and the business grow from there? What was next along the journey?
I was one of any given time, anywhere from 2 to 4 buyer's agents. My first year that I switched to sales, I switched in August. So 2 months into having a newborn, we found my replacement. I switched to sales, and I think I took Bold in September. So I was I'd been licensed for a year, but working in an admin capacity, brand new to sales. And I took Bold, and that was huge. I think my first year, full calendar year in sales, I did 24 transactions. And I think Bold was a big part of that. Back then, it was Matt and myself and 1 or 2 other buyer's agents. We all took it together, and our business grew for sure. And Matt was primarily our listing partner, going on all the seller appointments. And there was usually 2, 3, 4 of us who were handling the buyer leads. And we cycled through admin a lot back then. I think we probably went through like 8 to 10 admin in about a 3-year period. So there was a lot of frustration from the sales team with that inconsistency, sales would have to step back in, work their files, step out. And then Matt made a really great hire, Jen Stahlcup, who came on and took a look at our admin systems and basically rebuilt the way we handled transaction coordination in our admin team. At that point, I worked my way up to, lead buyer's agent, and I was handling the majority of the buyer's transactions. I went from 24 deals in my first year to 36 and then 40 something, and was doing 40 to 50 transactions a year as a buyer's agent. And after our admin hub kind of got cleaned up and well organized and was a really great, well working machine, Matt was ready to step out as listing partner. I was given that opportunity to step over from buyers and pass off my buyer business. So I hired a showing assistant, trained her to take over my buyer's business. And I switched to getting mentored by Matt to work with sellers and switched to listings. And I think I was listing partner for 1 or 2 years before Matt decided to step out and I became team leader.
Now, Matt, when you started out in the business, I mean, you had a reputation, you had a nickname, right? The Bread Man. How did you get that?
That's a funny story. The owner of the company had a big yacht, right? And he liked to bring me. I was a good fisherman. Of course, I'm fun to be with. I remember being on his yacht one time, and I was making some bread for us that morning, for breakfast to get up. And I'm cooking the bread, and the whole yacht was smelling like great. You know what I mean? I was like, man, because, boats don't usually smell that good. And this one smelled really good. We were sitting around the table for breakfast. I was like, there's so many realtors. How do you distinguish yourself, to where you're somebody people remember? One of the guys at the table goes, well, why don't you just bake bread? You could be the bread man. I was like, oh, come on, man, let's get serious. You know what I mean? So I thought about it, and I did a lot of new construction in the early days. And so I would bring a bread machine to the open house. I would go set it up like 2 or 3 hours before the open house started and have it start cooking. So by the time people started showing up, it's like the house is smelling awesome, And then people would buy a house. I'd give them a bread machine, a brand new one in the box. I was buying them by the pallet back then. I just became known as the bread man. And I remember my wife, one time we were traveling down in Atlanta or something, going through the airport. Somebody says, hey, bread man. She goes, oh my God, they don't know you down here, do they? You know what I mean? So it was really effective. Then we ended up getting a moving van And so it was called the Bread Van. It was actually so corny, but people still call me Bread Man today. You know what I mean?
That's an interesting point, Matt. You asked the question, this is years ago, how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else out in the marketplace? And that was a very effective way for you. Now, a brief word from our sponsors. Stick around.
KW Young Professionals is a community of Keller Williams Realty International on a mission to develop the next generation of leaders in real estate. They do this by equipping their members with foundational leadership education and experience, all in a safe environment to learn how to lead. By joining KWYP or launching a local KWYP chapter, young professionals gain real-life experience of what it's like to lead a KW Market Center or real estate agent mega team with minimized risk. They believe if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And if you want to go fast and far, go with the next generation of leaders of KWYP. Interested in joining or learning more? Head to kwYP.org for membership benefits, testimonials, and so much more.
You've built a business that was primarily relationship-based, right?
Yeah.
Before you got Liz in your world, how did you manage that? How did you maintain consistent connectivity with your people?
That's a great question, actually, because I wasn't very system-oriented. I know my wife had some issues with the way I handled things early on because I was just, kind of throwing files on her desk and saying, can you take care of this for me? When I was growing up, my dad moved a lot. And so I was always starting a new school after I had friends at the old school. And so I was always having to get out there in front of people and make friends. And I didn't really like it then. It made me who I am now. And so I've always been a relationship person. And I noticed that it really was the way to go for me. I mean, I really do care. You know what I mean? I'm not just saying I want to be your friend so you give me business. I care about you. And I want to help you with your future, real estate opportunities. And so, I think that a large part of my success is my relationships with people and actually being purposeful about it is the word I was looking for. I was actually purposeful about building relationships and helping people.
Every year, our closed business is 65 to 75% past client repeat and referral business. And it's been like that for the nearly 15 years I've been here. I think that what Matt's brand has been is to figure out really what the clients need and be okay with giving them exactly what they need, even if it doesn't mean necessarily buying or selling a house right now. We meet with so many clients, especially up here being so close to the military base, where sometimes it doesn't make sense to buy right now or to sell right now. And we definitely approach our clients with a consultative perspective. What's in their best interests in the long term? And I think just by approaching them about what they need, what their goals are, helping them understand how to get to their goals, it builds trust. And every year it's been a lot of repeat and referral business. We, of course, have other lead gen sources that we spend money on, but the majority of our lead gen budget goes towards our 36 touch, our past client follow-up, our client appreciation events, because those are the people that, we want to take care of and that we've built a lot of relationships with over the years.
And that's what Liz brought to the table, actually, too, was the organizational part of it, Liz and Caitlin, because I don't know that I would have ever got to that level had we not had somebody on the back end doing that part. You can have all the relationships in the world, but if you don't keep track of what's going on and stay in touch with them, right, it's going to go away. So that was a big part of it, is the admin that Liz brought to the table. That was why I always thought she was a great partner, because she knew the admin and she knew the people part. So she was the best of everything. And I wasn't really that good with the admin part, as you know.
So I'm curious how the conversation originally started, and then walk us through the process of this idea of succession, because a lot of really great teams struggle with this particular piece along their journey. So how did you guys approach that, and how did that originally come up?
One of my favorite sayings of all time is, and it's attributed to Zig Ziglar. I don't know if he invented it, but the only way to get what you want is help enough other people get what they want. I actually live by that. So I want to help other people get what they want. I mean, truly, not just because it's a saying, because that's really what I want. I saw Liz as, a partner probably since day one. We just didn't get to the transition part until the last few years. I wasn't sure because she's good enough to be on her own. She could do her own thing too. But I wanted us to stay together and be together better than we could be individually was always the way I looked at it.
I think Matt's been wanting to get to kind of that MREA 7th level team for a long time, to the point where maybe we took too many steps forward and had to take a big leap backwards to rebuild a couple times. When I first decided, I think I was 18, and I told our broker at the old real estate office I worked at the time that I was getting ready to go to college, but I wanted to stay on full time. And, maybe one day I'll switch to sales. And I remember my broker at that time said, well, getting into any commission-based industry is like starting any business. And the first year you're going to lose money. The second year you're going to break even. By the third year, if you stick around long enough, you'll probably be profitable and it will go up from there. So I always had this thought in my mind that whenever I go out on my own or switch into sales, that's what it's going to take, right? So once I had been on the team with Matt in sales for a couple of years, I think it's anybody who's been on a team for 3, 4, 5 years starts to wonder, should I go off as a single agent? You do have to start from ground one. You do have to rebuild a brand, you have to rebuild a database, you have to rebuild systems. So there was definitely conversations, 5 years in to Matt and I working together where we talked about am I outgrowing the team? Where should I go? What should I do? Should I stay on the team? And I mean, to put it simply, Matt has just always been really great about trying to find opportunities for himself and his family and his team members and his business partners, that his world was big enough that I could operate here on the team and accomplish all of my goals. So it was very tempting to stay. It's always been tempting to stay. As Matt started to transition out more and more, and I took on more responsibilities. I think it was at family reunion maybe 4 or 5 years ago, is the one in New Orleans where I sat down and said, okay, now it's time where we talk about ownership percentages and what that looks like, and how does the actual phase out of the company look like, not just roles and responsibilities. And it was just a very open dialogue.
So what were some of the lessons you guys have learned having gone through this process, right? Because we can talk about it here and it just sounds like, oh yeah, we just all decided and we all got together and sang Kumbaya and it was awesome. That isn't always the way that happens.
Yeah, a big part of it obviously was coming to Keller Williams and learning that was even a possibility. And having mentors like yourself, you've been a mentor to me from day one. And then also having the privilege of being in Gary Keller's top 100 for a lot of years, almost the whole time I was there. And I don't know how I got in there. Somebody must have pulled some strings or something, because I was with some big hitters, but I loved every minute of it. And it actually taught me a lot about how to help other people get what they want, kind of thing. It was more than just doing more real estate deals. It was helping, like Liz just said, with opportunity. And then I've read MREA, I don't know how many times, and listened to it on my headphones and stuff. And I wanted to live that. I wanted to be that, the MREA. I probably stepped out a little sooner than I should have, now in retrospect, because of the way the market's changed income-wise. But that being said, I feel like I have a lot of potential. I feel like I could still grow it some more, and that's what Liz and I are going to work on together. Don't take everything 100%, Liz. I'm just talking, okay? I'm just kidding with you. But, that's the whole thing is I was looking for examples of people that could do that could transition out. And I don't really see that many of them out there. There's some family members that have transitioned and taken over there. So I was trying to figure out, now, how can I do this? How can I make this appealing to Liz, right? To want to do this. We've worked through it. I mean, there's been some back and forth, and it took us a while to get it all put together, because we'd get busy doing something else and go, oh yeah, what did we talk about last year? We need to get back on that. And that's kind of how we ended up where we are now. I think we got everything taken care of, but there might even still be some loose ends for all I know. I'm hoping Liz will point that out if there is.
There's a really high level of trust that you guys have built together over the 15 years you've worked together, and certainly through succession. And now this idea of continuing to work together, of course, on what the future of the business can and should look like. How do you nurture and protect that level of trust between the two of you?
I think we both do a really good job of being transparent with each other. When I have seen a real estate team lose a really successful salesperson, I think the biggest issue is egos and a lack of transparency. And I think Matt and I do a really good job of setting aside our egos, and we know what we do well and we know what we need help with. And thankfully, we're kind of balance each other out that way. And Matt's done a very good job from the beginning about being very transparent about our business, about our lead generation model, our economic model, our budget model. There's been enough transparency that I understood what it would take to leave and start a brand, but I also understood what it would mean to stay and continue building that infrastructure, taking on more responsibility. So biggest lessons learned, transparency within the team. If you have someone on your team who's very entrepreneurial and is really skilled at their job, they'll figure it out. They'll figure out how to leave and rebuild. So either you bring them along with you and fold them in to the business, or you lose them. We're pretty direct and honest with each other.
Love that.
Yeah.
The market shifted in Alaska as well as the lower 48, right? It's a different market up there today. What one thing are you guys doing that's working for you in this market?
So our market is down by about 30%, and our team is down as well, but we're only down about 18%. So we aren't down as much as the average licensee. One thing that Matt and our team has always done a good job at is we manage our expenses well. We keep a pretty decent reserve amount so we can ride the waves, and we don't live paycheck to paycheck within our business. But as far as generating business and maintaining our market share, focusing on our past client database, lead gen, calling our people, making sure that they know what's happening with the market, no fear tactic messages to our clients, making sure that we understand their financial picture and how we can help them. So lead gen, past client follow-up for sure. We're also always looking for other opportunities to expand. We recently started representing a builder, and adding in new construction to our business has helped a lot. It's definitely pushed me into some new areas I haven't explored before, and that's allowed me to give up some parts of our business to the rest of our team members. So Matt and I are always looking for new lead gen sources and ways to expand. We also work commercial, and we have some really great commercial clients we've been helping over the years, and that market's still pretty busy here. We have started conversations with some other licensees who may be getting out of the business about what it looks like to take over their book of business. So that's, I think, a potential stream of new lead gen source coming in the next 1 to 2 years, because I do think there'll be some attrition with some real estate industry professionals that have been in it for 20, 30 years that are ready to step out. So how can we make a win-win there? So they're generating revenue off of their database as they phase themselves out.
That's awesome. Well, so I love to ask this question. When you think about the future, right? And you just named a couple of things, but when you think about the future of Team Dimmick and the horizon, what do you get most excited about?
Oh, we just hired a new transaction coordinator and operations manager this year. Our previous transaction coordinator, Caitlin, was with us for a decade, and she had a great opportunity to take on her family's business. I'm so excited for her and what she's doing. She stayed on as in a mentor capacity for us through the end of the year as we hired our next TC and ops person. And we have a brand new listing partner or listing assistant this year too, Talina. So she made the switch from a database manager to a listing assistant. So I have these two new hires that both just bring new energy into the team and new perspective. And I think that's going to help us grow to the next level. Anytime there's a changeover, I think with your key hires, key admin roles, that kind of forces everybody to figure out like where they might have been not performing at the top of their game and make everybody get back to work with a fresh perspective.
I'm excited about the opportunity that I think is going to be coming our way. As you know, back in 2006, when we started Keller Williams in Alaska, the market was on a downturn, a pretty big downturn. But I think the opportunity that created for us is here we come, new company to town. We have the best training. Everybody agrees with that. I mean, there's a lot of people that tell agents, go to Keller Williams and get trained and then come back. I mean, we're kind of known for that. And so I see that happening right now with our team, because Liz and I have been together so long and some of our team members have been there for a while, is capturing our unfair share and during this next downturn, which is already we're in, and just like Liz just pointed out, the market's down a lot more than we are. And so I'm excited about us being a solid team, being here for a long time, being in the area for a long time, having great team members and leadership, that we have an opportunity to capture more than our fair share. So that excites me, because I want everybody to make more money. That's what it's all about.
Love that. Well, Matt and Liz, I'll ask you first, Matt. Based on what you know today, if you were to go back and talk to your younger self getting into real estate, what would your advice be?
To develop your database first, right off the bat. Like, I don't care if it's 5 people, and then build that. I never did that. I just kind of haphazardly went through life shaking hands and asking people for business without any organization to it at all. And had I organized my database from the very beginning, I would have a lot of clients that have come through my life in between now and then. They would still be my clients, but I didn't build it then, so I don't have them now. And I run into them in town still, and they go, "Oh yeah, Matt, how you doing? Yeah, we just sold our house. We're moving." What I'm like, what? You know what I mean? So that's what I would do if I was my younger self, is I would learn systems sooner or hire somebody to it, really, because I'm not the person for that, and build that database and build that strong database and market to it. And to me, that's our biggest opportunity. I mean, we could buy leads all day long, and some of them pan out, as we know, Liz. Liz and I spend money on leads, and it's good because it's an extra piece of business that we wouldn't have, right? But that database is just so critical, I think, in this business. And I wish I would have done that a little differently from the beginning.
Okay. How about you, Liz? What advice would you give your younger self?
He still is young.
This is why Matt and I balance each other out so well. It's still something that I'm working on right now, but done is better than perfect. Just take action, just get things done. Matt, like he's saying, grow the database sooner, feed it sooner, nurture it sooner. My thoughts are build the whole database and make it perfect and then go to work. So Matt and I are kind of a little bit like opposite with our approach to certain things, or maybe our natural approach. And I think we both have to get a little bit outside of our natural comfort zone in order to make things happen both effectively and efficiently.
I love that. Guys, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hang out with us this afternoon. And I just want to say to any of our listeners, if you have any referrals for Alaska, look no further than Team Dimmick. We'll have Liz and the team's contact information in the show notes. Again, Matt, I'm glad to see you back up in Alaska. And Liz, it's always awesome to see you. And I just want to say thank you. You brought a bunch of wisdom to this conversation this afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you, Chase. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, guys. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
With Keller's successful career opportunities in real estate, also known as K-Score, we now live in a world where education is affordable, sometimes cost-free, accessible, and students don't have to worry about financial constraints or the confinement of a physical classroom. K-Score is the first of its kind as a national, fully digital real estate career training program. Keller Williams teamed up with Kaplan Real Estate Education to offer state-approved pre-licensing curriculum for aspiring real estate agents and continued real estate education credits for existing agents. In addition, K-Score provides the first ever of its kind career preparation coaching program, KW Prep, fully included for all K-Score scholarship recipients. Find out what K-Score offerings are available in your state by visiting kwnwr.com/K-Score and jumpstart your real estate career today. Well, Chase, that was fun. It's great to get perspective, particularly this interview, right, where we find Matt Dimmick, who's living at the 7th level and has replaced himself with some incredible talent in the form of Liz. What were some of your big takeaways?
One of them, Bruce, was the value of working with people that are different than you. people that have similar goals and vision, but like behaviorally they're different. And some of the value in that, and you could hear that throughout the story, is they push you in ways that maybe get you outside of your comfort zone, but in a positive way, right? And so you had Liz telling the story about kind of being urged or pushed into sales before maybe she felt ready. And certainly Liz was able to kind of move Matt forward on systems and models and consistency inside of the business. And they both benefited extremely well from that difference that they experienced working together.
That struck me also, right? If you think about, for those people who are familiar with the DISC, right, the DISC, which describe behavioral profiles, the perfect business would be high D, high I, high S, high C. Now, there is no one person who is wired that way. But what you understand, and it's what you alluded to, right, is that you can have somebody who's a high DI and you partner them up with an SC. Now, all of a sudden, you've got all four attributes working together. And we see this, right, in marriages, particularly, right? Heck, my wife's the exact opposite of me behaviorally, right? Yeah. And here we are 32 years later. It's so fascinating to me. I agree with you. I think you want people who are complementary. When you're starting to build your business, it's having people who complement what you do, not necessarily do what you do.
There's also challenges to putting opposites together, Bruce. And I asked them about what appears to be a really high level of trust and working together for this long and now working through succession, right? With Liz taking over as kind of the team leader. And, she shared something that I thought was incredibly insightful, and just that a lot of that trust is built on transparency was the word that she used. And just being open about how the business is run and how it works and everything behind the scenes, very open about that. And then, of course, a really low clash of egos. Yes. And however much we might wish that there was only low egos in real estate, we know that that's not the case. But having a low clash of egos, right, is, I think, really critical. And she talked about even communicating with each other directly and, of course, honestly. And yeah, those are some of the words you would think of as foundational to trust. When you're different than someone and they do things differently than you, and you kind of have the battle around how they're going to get done, you need to have a high level of trust, and you can see that they have that.
I love the fact, and you heard it, Matt alluded to the fact that he's read the MREA numerous times and listened to it. And you heard it come out in what Liz said. They operate on a lead generation model, on a budget model, on an organizational model. They have cash reserves, so they're not living paycheck to paycheck, and they can ride those waves. And, what you're listening to are people who run a business.
Yep.
It's not just real estate sales. It's a business.
They're taking advantage of some challenging market conditions, right? And building market share even while things are tough. And Liz shared a little bit about how they're doing that. They're focusing on lead generation with their sphere of influence and past clients, and they're educating those people on what's happening, right? No doom and gloom or kind of fearful tactics. They're also willing to add new types of opportunities to their business, new construction, a little bit of commercial. And now they're pursuing some of these relationships with agents potentially retiring out of the business. And so you hear that intentionality, Bruce, which is another word that you would apply to a successful business. A successful business isn't successful accidentally, generally speaking. They're successful because they're intentional, and you can hear how they're doing that, even given some headwinds in the industry.
It's that willing to innovate and to pivot when needed. Next week's Northern Lights guest is Nick Beveridge with Keller Williams Realty, Coeur d'Alene in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We'll see you next week on The Real Look. This podcast is produced by Marissa Frost. Visit KWNWR.com to access the show notes from today's episode. Head over to Apple, Google, or Spotify, or really any major streaming platform to subscribe, and don't forget to leave us a review. Thanks again for listening to The Real Look.